Hey everybody, this is the Freakopolis Times, our podcast, mostly about stuff related to our comics and game shop, the Freakopolis Geekery. We're Ian, Tyler, and Troy, and we run the shop and host this podcast. Join us and some occasional guests as we talk comics, games, pop culture, and just about anything else that pops up. Remember, while some of our topics can get a little geeky, they change up often, so hang in there and maybe the next one will be more your style. By the way, this podcast is video enhanced on YouTube and Spotify. Check it out if you're feeling left out on the visuals. You never know what might show up. Now, let's do the show.
I feel like I could do a whole range of death and or injury voice lines. I feel like I could do like a young child. I could do an old man. I could do a portly baker. I could do a shipmaster.
So give you any character type and you can die.
I can die as that guy. Hit me.
Like a fisherman on a crab boat.
Yeah.
That was pretty good. What about a halfling?
Yeah.
Snobby elf.
No.
Okay, yeah, you got it down. They're like cultural. That's how.
Yeah, they all there's specific inflections to all these types of things. That's what makes it special. Alright, so episode 3.
Yeah.
Awesome. I've been looking forward to episode 3. More than 1 or 2.
3's a lucky number for some people.
3 is my lucky number. Alright, we got some fun stuff to talk about this time around.
Do we?
Yeah. There's been some interesting ongoings this week, including the release of some movies, because that still happens, apparently. Movies still go to theater, yeah.
Okay.
People still go to them.
Do they, though?
Yeah.
I like to.
I've heard people do.
Right, that's the thing. You've heard they do, but apparently they do less than they used to. Because a Jurassic World Dominion, I believe, and Lightyear being Jurassic World Dominion is the third in the Jurassic World trilogy, and Lightyear is the Toy Story spin-off featuring Buzz Lightyear, of course. And they did not open to very strong weekends. They had an underwhelming weekend with both just clearing about $50 million. Which, of course, would be a big release in previous years, but in the pre-COVID era, these movies were easily hitting $300 million weekends. You would anticipate huge blowout weekends and stuff, and now things have slowed down.
Yeah, and they start to have to question whether or not the movie's going to pay for itself. I'm sure they were both expensive movies to make.
Yeah, Lightyear's a Pixar production, you know. They take years, they take the most cutting-edge technology, a ton of talent, and a crap ton of man-hours. So, you know, I bet you they both have their merit. They both have their controversies and stuff, but it really speaks to a drop-off. And I wonder, is that just because of movies and cinema culture in general, or is it because of spin-offs?
Well, I think they kind of suffer from sequel syndrome.
Right.
Where they're just sort of reusing these same characters. I think Dominion brought back 3 of the original actors from the first Jurassic Park.
Who are awesome actors, especially for those roles, but have been sandwiched into a movie that is nonsensical, apparently.
Yeah, that sounds about right. When you go that far down, I think, Dominion is number 5?
Well, the 5th sequel to Jurassic Park? I mean, if you can even consider it that.
I think the assumption on the studio's part is that bringing back those original actors will inspire the audience and make them nostalgic and want to go back and see how that has changed over time. But I don't know that it paid off.
No, I think it's really difficult. Sequels and prequels and spin-offs are becoming a big thing, right? It's like there's no new franchises, it's just branching off from old ones. But in movies, you have, like, Harry Potter, the what is it? Not the Cursed Child, the, Fantastic Beasts.
Yes,
that's the... That whole deal, yeah, Fantastic Beasts is a bit screwy and definitely hasn't landed.
Nope.
Then you have all these promised Game of Thrones spin-offs.
Those have remained to be seen.
Yeah. There was supposed to be, like, 4 in production originally.
Yep.
And then they made, like, 8.
What?
And now they just, a day or two ago, announced a Jon Snow post the story of Game of Thrones spin-off.
That sounds ridiculous.
Yeah.
Hard to believe.
I don't know that, I mean, they're going to have a hard time scrubbing the taint off of that one.
No, absolutely right. That was probably the biggest nosedive in media history.
Yeah, they'd have to pull some real magic to turn that bus around.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like they've got a lot of production put into it.
Mm-hmm.
They're going for it like it should be popular.
Throwing money at it.
Yeah, but boy, they're really going up against the, just a reputation. It precedes them.
It does, indeed. And, like, just the concept of all these spin-offs, the Walking Dead spin-offs and stuff as well, it's endless. They feel like they can't let go of these titles because if there's 1 million fans that will watch anything you spew out, then why not just continue to spew things out even when the well is more than dry? They are picking up gravel at the bottom of that well now. Like,
Yeah, I get you. It sort of just piques my interest, all this talk about sequels, how The Lord of the Rings and its anime and TV show will hold up. They, unlike Game of Thrones, don't have that taint. All the Lord of the Rings stuff that I've watched has been gold, to me at least. The Hobbit, maybe, debatable at some parts, but yes, these TV shows.
Yeah, The Lord of the Rings as an IP, I find to be a personal kind of thing, an untouchable thing. It's ridiculous to think that they might stick words in Galadriel or Gandalf's mouth, and that is a tough ground to walk because they are such particular characters. Like, there's no messing with them in my mind.
Right, here it's different. I mean, in the case of Game of Thrones, George R.R. Martin is still alive.
Yeah.
And people can write and inject stories into that world, and it feels okay. I mean, because he seems to be okay with it. He's letting that stuff happen.
He's on the production team, yeah.
Right. On the other hand, Middle-earth, the people that inherited that story have given permission for people to change it and to inject into it, but, I think the purists are going to say, but Tolkien may not have felt that way, or may not have allowed those things to exist in his world, and might have felt very, very differently about it. So to hang the sort of Lord of the Rings logo on this new sort of unapproved content is questionable.
Yeah, they even attempted to recreate the intro to the Fellowship in some of their marketing, some of their pre-release trailers and stuff with, huge overland shots and a narrative and whatnot.
Yeah, well, that's even them sort of trying to borrow some of Peter Jackson's reputation.
Exactly.
Essentially to say, hey, he kind of showed you the world of Middle-earth, and we're continuing in that trend. We're going to show you the world of Middle-earth. However, he didn't rewrite it. He didn't. He
just adapted.
He didn't write a new story. Yeah. He just did an amazing job of delivering it to the screen for us.
He and his wife, yeah.
Yeah, but the story remains the same, and this stuff is going to be new. I mean, this is newly created content with that Lothar logo hanging on it.
Yes, which even talented fantasy writers, who all of them, of course, are going to be inspired by Tolkien. All of them, hopefully, have read those books, given it's the basis of their genre, are going to be standing on top of a mountain and attempting to pile on top of that mountain a little bit more. And I don't know if it's going to make for a better scene, all in all, you know?
Mm-hmm. And it's supposed to be like a precursor thing, right? What they're doing, yeah. It's going to come beforehand. So
yes.
Essentially... the second age rather than the third.
Which I can point to some text written by Tolkien in letters that essentially says, not much of interest that should be shown happens in the second age. Like, I've looked at that text and specifically been like, oh, and yet they chose to do this. Now they're treading into some territory where they're going to say that this feels disingenuous to the IP and like it might be a betrayal of the original vision. And even if it is good fantasy, there's going to be elements about it that are new, and some people are going to be unwilling to accept that.
Often you'll see some new franchise come out, though, and at the end of, say, the first film, you say, oh, man, I hope they make another one of these.
Yeah.
Right, you know, so...
say like John Wick?
Yeah, and, you know, actually, the John Wick ones weren't too bad.
Well, that was the thing. Like, it ended up kind of pulling off what you were looking for as a new franchise. The first movie, it was like, oh, I could see them doing another one of these, and the second movie was great, too, so...
But on the other hand, like another Keanu Reeves franchise, The Matrix, like...
Right.
You know,
oh, yeah.
Like, that came out, and it was so amazing and so, you know, groundbreaking.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember thinking, I hope they don't make another one of these. You know?
Right, there's two different types of movies, yeah.
There was just something about, like, it's going to wreck it if they make another one. And sure enough, you know, the second, third, and I haven't seen the fourth Matrix. I'm not even sure I've seen the third. I did see the second, but yeah, I was, you know, left disappointed. I guess is there a movie that you can think of where you would wish they would continue it, or one that should have had a sequel that
Zootopia. Why isn't there a Zootopia 2? Also, I mean, like, people would have said The Incredibles. And then look at that, Incredibles 2 came out. There's just a rehash of the same thing, you know?
Yeah.
And that was a bit painful. I think what we're looking at might be a symptom of Marvel's success, the MCU.
I think so, yeah.
Because they are able to do... They said, we'll make a broad, intertwined universe where there can be so many different sequels. Mm-hmm. And it will work, because we'll just be continuing the plot lines that all intermingle together.
That more follows the...
Well, I mean, like, you know, Spider-Man got 3 movies. Iron Man got 3 movies. Thor's getting another movie. It's just... The very concept of being able to dip back into these things over and over again has become so commonplace, and I think it might be because of Marvel's success.
Well, I mean, sequels existed well prior to Marvel tackling any of this stuff.
Sure.
Marvel, because of their comic book experience, knew a good way to deliver sequels that work. Mm-hmm. And a lot of theirs work. Star Wars is an interesting one. You know, are those sequels? And that's just a chopped up giant story, at least Lucas's part of it. And then, you know...
But it is a attempt at making a intermingled universe where they can continuously attempt to tell stories with these characters, even though they're all happening at the same time in generally the same places.
There was a promised sequel I can think of that everybody kind of in the nerd culture was looking forward to that never got made. Mm-hmm. And that was the sequel to Buckaroo Bonsai. At the end of the first or the only Buckaroo Bonsai movie, it ended and basically said, coming to theaters, Buckaroo Bonsai versus the World Crime League. But that movie never appeared.
Dang.
Oh.
So,
Heartbreaking.
Right. A heartbreaking loss of a sequel there.
False hope.
Imagine the universe where that Buckaroo Bonsai released.
Oh, that's the golden universe.
It is.
Right there.
Things were so different.
Earth won.
Earth won in the end.
That's kind of where things went off the rails.
It was, yeah.
When the Buckaroo... What is it?
Buckaroo Bonsai.
Buckaroo Bonsai 2 didn't come out and the world just went to hell.
You know what else is going down? Krypto.
Krypto. Yes. The super dog.
The super dog.
He's going down.
He is.
Kryptonite got to him.
Okay, why is Krypto going down? This is Death of Krypto.
It is. The Death of Krypto. That should be the title for this episode.
Okay.
You're going to have to buy at least 7 different series. It occurs in Superman and Action Comics and Detective Comics and Batman. So get in on this crossover now. The Death of Krypto. No, cryptocurrency, which includes a strange amount of dogs.
Okay.
Krypto is, going down.
But not Krypto the super dog.
No, sadly not.
And no crypto coin.
No.
Like Krypto, the super dog coin.
Right. Which definitely should exist.
I was going to say, which is disappointing.
Yeah. I don't know why. I don't know how. But people who have invested in Bitcoin and Ethereum and all those digital currencies, blockchain boys, are finding themselves to be crashing and burning this week.
Dang.
Well, when you find out that they buy up coal power plants just to run crypto farms, they should go down.
Yeah, I imagine so. It's kind of a ridiculous proposition to use all that energy to generate blockchain, essentially.
A make-believe currency.
Oh, yeah. No, the concept itself has some interesting applications, but to use it as a pyramid scheme is an interesting
Doesn't
one.
hold up forever?
No, exactly. Yeah, they tend to topple down. So, well, best of luck to you, crypto bros.
It's one of the more environmentally detrimental pyramid schemes.
That's the thing. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's kind of evil and it's bad.
That's bad for gamers.
Right. Which one would be the best Bitcoin farmer? Smog, Scrooge McDuck, Mr. Krabs. Go!
I don't think that's Mr. Krabs' line of work. It's
Well,
not his
he's
line
got
of business.
Oh, he's got a water-cooled system, though, man. He has the advantage of being subaquatic. The whole heating issue is bypassed, yeah.
But Smog is so fitting for it.
Smog wouldn't care for the heat. You're right. Smog, well, but then the
And all he does
GPUs
is he sits there, well, his gold, accrues.
He would be melting 3090s left and right.
Oh, yeah.
But I think Scrooge has Scrooge is like a banker,
Right.
He's like an administrative sort. I can definitely see him putting together a Bitcoin farm.
Mm-hmm. I do believe Mr. Krabs has put together deceptively large operations before, though, with slave labor and stuff. And I think given that he's underwater, as long as he managed to get the farm running with that liquid cooling, he might have an advantage there.
What if those Krabby Patties are being fried over the heat sinks from the GPUs?
That sounds about right. Yeah.
Yep, I think that's definitive. I think Mr. Krabs would end up.
Mr. Krabs?
Yeah.
Wow, I never would have expected him to win. There you go.
Well, much like Crypto Bros wallets becoming miniaturized, I like to see monsters and warriors miniaturized. We love minis. We're all about them.
Yeah, they're super cool.
We like seeing all that tiny detail, all the passion people put into their miniatures projects and stuff, and that's why we have brought in a new miniatures painting contest to the store, in fact, this week. And that's a Chimera.
Yeah, and it comes in a pretty sick kit, too. I'm thinking of picking one up because I really haven't painted many minis.
Yeah.
Literally like 1 or 2. And it comes with a bunch of paints.
12 paints and 2 brushes. Yeah. The kit itself is pretty damn nice. A really awesome Chimera figure. And everything that you need, essentially, to be able to get the whole base coating and the details down. Then, if you want to do some additional detailing with washes and whatnot, that is up to you. But I think it's an awesome figure. Do you consider, like, manticores to be chimeras?
You know, I think they're just commonly mixed up.
Yeah.
Like, people
Exactly.
really, they don't know a manticore from a chimera.
What about a hippogriff? Is that a chimera?
No.
No.
No. That's more like
These
the
are
griffin
all 3
territory.
different things for sure.
What about chupacabra?
Is that a or a chimera?
A chimera.
No.
No. Nope.
Wow, you guys think chimera are very specific.
They are.
Yeah. Chimera is one kind of thing.
But it can be described as a thing that is like
Many things.
many things grafted together.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a fusion of monsters for
Right.
sure. But it's a specific fusion. I don't know how they... I mean, I'm sure they're created from a spell or something. They're not...
The Jersey Devil, not a chimera. Isn't that just like a goat on a dog?
Probably something like
Not
that.
a chimera, though, for sure.
Not a chimera!
No.
Do you think it has
Priority 1.
sharp fangs?
What are we talking about? Chimera?
Maybe. I guess.
Or is it a Jersey Devil?
Or is it the Jersey Devil?
These are the questions you gotta ask yourself. But I think the thing is, they're all easily mistaken for one another. Like if you saw a chupacabra and you mistook it for a chimera, I think that's acceptable. If you saw a
Hippogriff.
and you mistook it for a chimera, equally acceptable, I suppose. You just gotta study your mythology, I guess.
Oh man, what's your favorite mini you've ever seen, Tyler?
That is a tough one. I really like ogres and giants and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Those are always pretty awesome. One of my favorite ones, we got 2 in the store right now that I really like. There's a human with a giant great flail that is really awesome looking, and then a dwarven fighter that has a big lantern hanging over his head, and that just gives me so many ideas. Those are my favorite ones I've seen in a long time.
What about you, Dad? Any minis in your long history of minis that stick out to you?
Yeah, I have a project that was in the works that never got finished of a really big giant that carried a war platform, essentially, covered with goblins.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, hell yeah.
And so it was one of those, kind of using a giant as a huge siege weapon. So he's carrying all those goblins with trebuchet and ballista and stuff on it, mounted on it. So
Like a Moomakill from
yeah,
Lord of the Rings.
Yeah, I'm pretty partial to some of the larger minis for sure, like that Ent that we have down at the
Yeah,
stores.
he's pretty cool.
Fantastically well detailed. I love all the moss and the shrooms growing off of him and stuff. I love minis that tell a story like they're part of a display piece all on their own. Some people put fantastic work into painting their minis and getting the detail in them, adding on to the sculpt themselves to make sure that it's a unique character that you've never seen before. And that kind of stuff can be mind-blowing.
minis themselves have gone through so much evolution.
Yeah.
Back in the day, they were lead or white metal.
Yep.
And they had a lot of flash on them, and your first stage of painting a mini would just be sort of carving away all the garbage metal that was still attached to it from the mold process. And now minis are almost always plastic. The whole WizKids line of unpainted minis is pre-primered.
Yeah.
Primer used to be one of the things, because getting primer right really could be pretty difficult. If you did it wrong, you would fill in what little detail there was with primer. So now you get minis that have excellent levels of detail, never before seen, getting better all the time, year over year. It just gets better. And they're pre-primered, and the detail is still there. It hasn't been filled by primer or anything like that. So it's just a perfect starting point for painting a mini. It's the technology behind minis now makes them so much better, and what you put on the table looks great.
That's no surprise with the way that 3D printing has leapt and bound in the past decade or so, but it is super cool to see. I do see some older collections and whatnot with LED minis that are still very impressive, but the new ones have such minute detail. You can have a little spell book hanging off the waist, or some runes imprinted onto the breastplate, or whatever. Things that just make you go, wow, like, this guy is really fantastically detailed for only being like an inch tall.
Yeah, has some real character to him.
Right, and it will present challenges to your brushing skills in order to take advantage of some of the detail that can be there. It's like they've got a level of detail that becomes really challenging to match with the paint.
Oh, I've messed up more than enough, but at the same time, I was impressed with myself. I'm not a particularly visually artistic person. I've never been good at drawing or painting. My handwriting kind of sucks. But when I gave miniature painting a good try, and put in a few hours and was taught some good techniques by people who really knew what they were doing, I was really impressed by the results that I could get. Even though I was a total amateur, I look at those minis still today and it's like, wow, those things look
orcs,
awesome when you put them on the table, or my beholder. Yeah. That kind of stuff really came out super well, and you're always proud of them, no matter how long ago or whatever you managed to put them together. It definitely makes for a collection that is all your own. So minis are special to us, definitely. Oh man, okay, so we were just having a discussion about miniatures. And I'm gonna throw in a new segment. I have the power to do that now. It's episode 3. That's why I was anticipating this one. And that's gonna be Ian's Did You Know? And did you know that H.G. Wells, author of The Time Machine, you probably read it in 8th grade, The Morlocks, that kind of future past.
Yes, and seen the movies.
Yeah.
Not only the original movie that was filmed so long ago in like black and white.
Yeah.
Up to sort of the more modern ones now. Yeah, so... Okay.
So, yes, H.G. Wells, author of The Time Machine. He was part of the beginnings of tabletop miniatures gaming, actually, which a lot of people I don't think recognized, but towards the early 20th century, he released Little Wars, which made use of miniatures to simulate historical battles, and there were simple rules of movement and firing and close combat, though there wasn't dice involved. It was timed turns, and you would fire little toy cannons at the other miniatures.
Oh, yeah, I see.
But it was a lot of fun, and the rulebook is sought after specifically because it has a lot of pictures of H.G. Wells playing this game.
Well, so then it was one of the early dexterity games, right?
But it did have elements of measuring out a recreation of a historical battlefield on miniature size and using lead toy soldiers and little miniatures to symbolize and simulate these battles, which is really cool. However, yeah, the original publication of Little Wars came out with rules for movement and firing and close combat, but H.G. Wells was way ahead of his time. A publisher of like 50 different novels and all sorts of sci-fi stuff that was unheard of. Well, he also considered expansions, because in the next publication, his advanced expansion for Little Wars, it included more complex rules for cavalry and military engineers, and so he was the Games Workshop of his age.
I see. I mean, he had sort of the precursor to DLCs in video games.
Exactly.
Now. It's like you need these expansions to have all these cool features for your army, and so people were probably rushing orders out. Yes, I want cavalry.
Critics of the day, of course, said such things as, H.G. Wells had already written the rules prior to the initial publication. He just cut out this content in order to sell it to us at a later date.
Says the New York Times.
Exactly, yes.
D&D, so we've been trying to do a D&D tip whenever we can.
Yeah. They're not super complex. They're definitely things that a lot of people would be familiar with, I'm sure, but also things that you commonly see new players make mistakes with. And this one, this week, applies to both players and Dungeon Masters, depending on how long you've been playing for, and that is, learn not to metagame. As a player, you probably don't want to research encounters for stuff that's coming up. If you're playing like a module, don't buy the module and read through it. That ruins the experience. And as a DM, when you swap out of the DM seat and let one of your players maybe give it a try, don't use your knowledge of the monster manual to completely screw them over. Once you pierce beyond the veil and see the inner machinations of D&D, you're kind of put in a seat where, for the sake of the game, you gotta ignore some of your own knowledge.
Mm-hmm. Keeping it to within the realm of your character's knowledge in the world is one thing, but saying, oh, that orc has a 14 AC and 26 health, you know, it's like, you might learn that.
Because that's what orcs have.
Right.
Yeah.
And sometimes that's just straight up not true.
Mm-hmm.
Other times, yeah, it breaks the immersion.
If you've run a dungeon before, per se, and you know that there's a big guillotine trap coming up, it's reasonable, I think, for your character to say, this feels like a dangerous area, we should keep our eyes out, you know.
Check for traps.
Yeah, keep our senses sharp. Maybe not specifically check for traps. Because then you're going to say, I check for traps, and then you're like, do you now?
If that's what your character would do.
Yeah, exactly. And if they don't, then maybe they would keep silent, but if the entire party knows that there's a trap coming up, I don't know why you're running this module. You just kind of have to enjoy the excitement of seeing people be surprised, even if you have the forward knowledge of what may happen.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's a tough one to deal with, and I always recommend that people change something about modules.
Yes.
As frequently as is possible. Don't play it verbatim. Modify the module. Change the location of the trap. Just to help keep that metagamer on their toes and make them quickly realize, okay, it's not going to match up with what they know, so might as well just let the story unfold like any other player would.
There are very few encounters I run where I don't introduce a personal twist. Like, oh, these orcs have necrotic weapons, or something along those lines, where you go, oh man, this is not out of the monster manual, you know, this is something else has been thrown on top of this to make it not as predictable, because the people I play with have played for like 20 years. They know how these things work. It's hard to surprise them.
Well, I mean, I think it's okay, and it's fine for, like, let's say an orc to be an orc, and for even any player knows roughly how tough an orc is after a certain amount of, after you've fought a certain amount of them, you know about what to expect. But knowing the specifics of, I'm going to check the king's pouch.
Yeah. He doesn't happen to be carrying a key, does he? Precisely.
One that I know nothing of yet, but...
Just an inkling.
Going with my gut here.
There's an important key.
I guess you have to continuously put yourself in the position of your character.
Mm-hmm.
And that you have to fall back on playing your character and thinking about things and thinking about what's unfolding in the dungeon or the scenario, which is what your character sees.
Yeah, experienced players are able to place themselves into the scene, right? Though specifically a technique on how to block your mind from treading towards your knowledge of the encounter or the monsters, I think that takes some Doctor Strange style discipline. There's just no way to do it in full, you know?
Yeah, that would be tough.
Feeble mind!
Yeah, unless you feeble mind yourself.
This is for my own good. I wish to play D&D anew.
So typically Heroclix, when you play a game of Heroclix, the sort of most common way to play is 1v1 with a 300-point constructed team.
Mm-hmm.
But we've been experimenting with some other ways to play in the shop, in-store gaming. And this past week we did an interesting thing. Give us a lowdown on that.
Well, it was a free-to-play event, which is always nice, and it was Uatu, the Watcher, that sort of took the lead.
Right. So each player brought a small team, smaller than normal team.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And then all of those work cooperatively against essentially the shop, played mostly by Tyler.
Yep.
And you played Marvel's The Watcher, and some team that he assembled.
Some Marvel characters.
Yeah,
that he,
it was
together.
kept thematic for sure. The Watcher had pulled together a team of specifically Avengers and Avengers-esque characters branching out, but then it was very cool because we found two maps that worked really well together. The players brought together their teams and had to fight their way through a jungle into this temple where the Watcher waited, and the rule condition that we set at the beginning was essentially that they had to KO the Watcher. If that was completed, then they would take the win.
All right.
Which is not the same necessarily as attempting to get a full board clear.
Right,
you know?
right. If they could figure out a way to take out the Watcher, they would win.
Yeah.
Regardless of the rest of the guys.
However, and we had, the full evening to be able to play through the scenario, a good 2.5 hours or so.
Yeah.
And as they fought their way through the jungle, it ended up being exactly about 1 hour before they broke into the temple, past the initial defenses, and they were still going strong, right, Tyler?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I think I had only taken out 1 or 2 characters at that point.
Though they had suffered a few wounds and stuff, which is cool to represent in Heroclix, because suddenly the guys who were in the front prior are saying, I'm a little beat up, I'm out of my imperviousness, I'm down to, invulnerability, I gotta step back, like...
No, I'm not charging it,
Yeah,
you go for it.
That's kind of got a definite role-playing feel to it once it starts doing that. Once you start not going all out and trying to win, and it's more about, there's other people that can go up front and I can hang back and be support or something. Right?
Or potentially in just trying to kind of tell a cool story with your character where they manage to get into some good fights and come out on top, or maybe even not, However, once they broke into that temple, we had a big surprise for them.
Yeah, they had been doing pretty well. I think I might have spaced out their opposition a little too much, but like you said, it made for a good time. And with the roll of the dice, I sort of had a plan in mind for what opposition to bring in as reinforcements. This time around, I rolled a 5 out of 6, and they got a Hulkbuster R2, a huge, colossal mini, with 23 clicks, a complete beast, maybe even more than Uatu himself.
I believe so. Yeah, he's a higher point value, and he has a 6 damage initial click.
Yeah.
Which
he's big, right? I think his base takes 4 squares.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, so yeah, he's a big guy.
he was punishing for sure.
Mm-hmm.
The Uatu himself definitely had quite a few clicks to work with as well, but at that moment when we introduced this giant boss, essentially, he was like the Mr. X or whatever, something that you had to avoid, because if he was coming at you, he could probably one-hit KO any of the party's clicks, and they decided to prioritize taking out Uatu as their only hope of finishing the battle, which ended up being an epic fight in the end there.
Yeah, Uatu has quite the stats at the end. Better than he does in the beginning, which is always an interesting
Kind of build.
fight.
Yeah.
But they really did surround him. If they hadn't made it and made a bunch of hits on him, probably in the last round, I had the Hulkbuster and him ready to do a pulse wave and hit pretty much the entire enemy team.
Yeah. It was a pretty brutal combination for a minute there, but they managed to pull out the damage, and it made for a story, which is so cool with Heroclix. But it was really well played, some great coordination on the players' parts. I think it's super cool when you limit it down to a small team and only have so many actions to work with, but you're working amidst an entire party of people. That ended up being a super fun experience, and wow, the cheers and the high fives at the end when they took Uatu out was super awesome. So
yeah, that felt great.
Yeah, it definitely showed that there was some teamwork going on. There was a lot of energy. It was really cool, and everybody universally asked for more similar scenarios.
Yeah.
So it proves that kind of works. So it's another example of a game that's normally played one way, when changed up a bit, kind of has a whole new life to it.
Yep.
So we're going to be doing that, I think, in the shop probably on a monthly basis.
Yeah, I've been watching ObiWan.
ObiWan.
Yeah, the Wan. They had a scene in the most recently, or actually they had multiple scenes in the most recent ObiWan episode where they recreated Chris and Haydenson and a younger ObiWan as they practiced, Padawan and Master. And honestly, I know that it's a notorious role now.
Yeah.
But those scenes were pretty good. It was satisfactory to see them try and bring them back in a better light.
Okay.
From what you showed me, it looked cool.
Yeah. And, I mean, they did a good job of framing the entire theme of the episode behind those flashbacks, essentially, which I found to be...
So what's the premise of ObiWan? I really don't even know, is this... What point in his life is this covering?
He is now Ben Kenobi on Tatooine, overwatching Luke.
Okay.
But it is a sort of prequel to the original trilogy, where Obi-Wan is tasked with saving a very young Leia. And so it shows how they know each other. And there is a scene specifically in the original trilogy where Leia recognizes Ben Kenobi as a name that is, good news to her, essentially.
Right, okay.
So they have a history that's implied, but we've never really seen any of what that is, and they're filling that gap here. And I think that one of the best parts of the series is that Ewan McGregor is branching the gap between the Obi-Wan we saw in the prequels and the Ben Kenobi of the original trilogy. The in-between is very well acted here. It's super well portrayed. You can see now the full transition.
From Jedi Master to Hermit.
Yeah. He pulls it off super well. Unfortunately, though, it's still subject to a lot of the old Star Wars campiness, It goes straight from...
Some people love that, though,
Yeah.
so you gotta let them have it.
No, I don't mind it. Star Wars varies from, wow, this is really awesome Star Wars, to, yep, that's Star Wars. However, I'll say that every scene involving Vader has been a real fan service, I've seen the community only essentially gush about it, and they're just this is so awesome. We finally get to see Vader in live action be as badass as we knew he was supposed to be, you know?
Yeah.
And in particular, there was a duel in this most recent episode. Won't go too spoilery, but of course you're going to see Vader fight. And in this duel, his movements were still reminiscent of the fighting style of the original trilogy, which is kind of sluggish, you know?
Yeah.
It's not too showy or anything, not too technical.
Yeah.
And they still managed to pull that off in a cool way.
Yeah, that was before they would have, like, actual, like, fight directors.
Yeah.
Start swinging them at each other.
Like, don't worry, guys. The important thing is going to be these lightsabers anyways.
Yeah.
All right. Now tear off your robes. This is not the Star Wars production I thought that we were on.
And that about does it for this one. If you liked hanging with us, please subscribe through your favorite podcast directory. Join our Discord and check out our shop, the Freakopolis Geekery. See you next time.